Great, thanks folks. So we are going to get started. I'll share my screen here and I'm so excited to see how many of you are here from all around the world. I am here from Winnipeg, Canada, and I see that there's a fan out there from Winnipeg as well. So a big shout out to you. And it's really fantastic seeing where everybody's from. So if you haven't put that in the chat yet, please do so. So I am Jacqueline Monteith, and without knowing anything at all about me, I have a question for you. This is two truths and one lie, and your job is to pick out the lie, and you can put your guess in the comments. So which of these statements is the lie? And I'll give you a few moments to put your guess into the comments, and we'll come back to this very shortly. So have a guess, which one is the lie? All right, so as mentioned, I was born and raised here in Manitoba in the center of Canada. And when I finished my education degree, my big dream was to teach and travel all around the world and go from place to place for a year here and there and really expose myself to the different opportunities that we have globally. When I finished my university courses, I realized how broke I was, and that just wasn't possible for me at the moment. So I decided to have a brand new experience, but within my own province. And I ended up traveling into northern Manitoba. I ended up in Cormorant, which is about 700 kilometers north of Winnipeg. And I loved it so much. I went for that first year and ended up staying for 10 years. One of the reasons why I loved it so much is that it looks a lot like this, you know, right in the center of the boreal forest, life on the lake, and everything to do with nature and land-based learning right outside my door. While I was there, I ended up doing my master's in distance education. And going through your master's program, teachers do not necessarily look like this when it comes to distance education, although that is what has been happening this past year. Now what I do is I am no longer in the classroom. I am back centered in Winnipeg, but in my school division, I'm still traveling north all the time. And I am now the science instructional coach. My job is really teaching and supporting other teachers from kindergarten through grade 12 science in my school division. Every red dot you see on this map is one of my schools, and our geography, our size is larger than the state of California in the US. And it's pretty expansive. So a lot of what I do is just thinking outside of the box, trying to do outreach in new and different ways, and really supporting our teachers and thus our youth in all of these different ways. All right, so Chris, do you see some guesses on the two truths and a lie?
I do. So it's a pretty mixed smattering. However, I've got to say that it looks like jellyfish and brown bear seem to be running neck and neck. So,
Well, the truth is that I tricked all of you because all three are actually true. So sorry, guys, I had to do that. All three are true. I didn't even know that there were jellyfish in the Pacific Ocean, but there are, and I found out the hard way. Yes, when I was in Cormorant, I did get chased by a bear. And yes, Churchill is one of our schools, polar bear capital of the world. And I travel there regularly and have done a lot of work with Polar Bears International and ended up sleeping out on the tundra in one of the tundra buggies doing polar bear studies. So it's been a pretty fantastic journey, that's for sure. All right, so to start us off today, I do have a poll, and the poll is, which tool is best? So all you need to do is pick one: hammer, screwdriver, drill, measuring tape, or sewing needle. And we'll give you about 30 seconds here. Which tool is best? And while people are deciding, perhaps Lou, you can tell us which one you're voting for.
I am voting for sewing needle because I feel like I'm a sewer, and so that's the one that naturally comes out to me. Everything that we have, it's one of those tiny tools that's underrated, I think.
Oh, very nice. Yes, underrated with lots of possibilities. Johan, do you agree or disagree with Lou?
It sounds lovely. Again, but I'm thinking more the measuring tape. I want to measure twice before cutting, before we make any mistakes.
All right, very true. All right, so we can close down that poll and let's see our results here. Sewing needle for the win. Lou, I don't know if that was your influence or not, but well done, well done. However, Chris, maybe you can come on board and have a guess at which tool is best and which one is actually the winner here.
Oh my goodness. So I honestly, there were some really great comments. Like Donna, for example, said, "Wouldn't it depend on the job?" Which was immediately my thought. Like, well, I guess it depends on the job. So I honestly don't know. And then there's
And you know what?
one that says the tape, because the rest are a direct action and the tape is the assessing. That was interesting.
Yeah. And you know, that's exactly right. We haven't identified what the problem is, so we don't know what the job is. So what I've done is I've asked you to pick a best tool when really we haven't even identified what's going on. And that's really how a lot of us as educators have felt over the last year, where we've been put into this really strange situation where we're going from classroom teaching to online learning, to distance ed outreach, whether it's online or offline, and everywhere in between. So it's a pretty confusing time. What I would like to do today is, here, we can close those results out. What I would like to do today is really have a look at figuring out what is the job, you know, so that we can pick our best tools, so that we can move forward with purpose and intention in our science education. So our learning intentions today: to develop an understanding of the pedagogy of distance ed, to appreciate the importance of experiential teaching, learning, and connecting, and to consider a couple of tools for teaching science moving forward in 2021. It's already bound to be an interesting year ahead. I would like to know a little bit about where you're from and everything that's happening pandemic-wise. Here in Manitoba, we are still in code red. We have been in our second wave for about 2 months, and today is the first day of loosening a little bit of restrictions, meaning we're now allowed to have 2 people within our household. Yeah, it's just it's been a long haul for sure. So I'm curious about what's happening in your end of the world and what teaching is like for you at the start here of 2021. So as you're putting in those comments, I'd like to go over a bit of the pedagogy of distance education. Again, just like we don't know what the tools are, or what the job was when we're picking our tools, that's that big difference between emergency teaching and proper distance education programming. Chris, have you felt like you were emergency teaching in this past year?
Absolutely. I should have said, while I'm currently not in a classroom for about the last year due to my position at Toddle, I still feel like I've been teaching in an emergency situation, definitely.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's similar to myself, right? I don't have my own classroom anymore because I teach and support other teachers. And it was still the same thing. It was still this emergency scenario, and not supporting a planned, proper distance education program. When we look at distance ed pedagogy, I continually go back to this framework here. And this is the modes of interaction that really establish that foundation of relationship. Relationship is the most important key factor in all of this. What we're looking at here is that relationship between student-teacher, student content, and even teacher content, because ourselves, we want to feel connected as well. What we don't see on this is student-to-student relationship, those peer interactions, as well as student-to-self. And looking at our student-teacher relationship first, it's imperative that we always remember Maslow before Bloom. So anyone who can, I know that our panelists or our participants might not have this ability, but our panelists sure do. So unmute your mic and we are going to shout this loud and proud across the world here. And we are going to do this on a countdown, and folks at home, I want to hear you as well. You can get out of your chair, but I want to hear this. Are we ready?
Yes.
3, 2, 1.
Maslow before
Bloom.
Bloom.
All right. Well, I would
Maslow
give that a
before
5 out of 10. 5 out of 10 tops. I think we can do better. Let's go. Let's try again. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Maslow
Before
Bloom.
Bloom.
That's right. That's the key factor that we are remembering here today. As you're putting in all the comments of what life is like in the pandemic for you, we're always going back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs first. This is a reminder. This is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It starts with that baseline of physiological needs, climbing up the pyramid to safety, love and belonging, esteem, and self-actualization. And this is really what we are first and foremost concerned with, especially during this world crisis that is happening. What our goals as educators are, though, is to get to the top of Bloom's taxonomy. So we are looking at the higher order thinking with analyzing, evaluating, and creating. And of course, that is our goal. We are in the education system. We are educators. That's what we're trying to get to. But we need to consider that Maslow's comes first. That safety, that security, that love and belonging really lays that foundation. So Chris, maybe if you could just read 1 or 2, what life is like right now for teachers across the world.
Yeah, it seems by and large, and I was a bit shocked at this due to my situation in Florida, where things are kind of normal, so to speak, as far as attending school. Almost everywhere else around the globe here are still in lockdown and still teaching virtually. So that seems to be the majority here.
Yeah. And that's what's happening here in Manitoba as well. Now, there's a difference here in our capital city of Winnipeg. We just finished a 2-week period where grades 7 to 12 students were doing remote learning, but kindergarten through grade 6 were in class. However, in my school division, we have multiple communities across the north who are in a lockdown situation right now, where everybody is isolated into their homes, and everybody K through 12 is distance learning. And yeah, so there's definitely a huge variety here, even within our own province. When we're looking at Maslow's before Bloom, this is that direct motivation to learn. When we're hitting home with that relationship will directly affect the amount of time that people are willing to devote to learning. And that's not just students, that's the whole family unit. As educators, we're reaching out to students and also the family unit. And this really comes into play here. It's difficult though, because we are constantly time and place shifting right now. We are going from the same place at the same time as teachers with our classroom, all the way down to a different place, a different time, and every quadrant in between. And it's different sometimes day by day or week by week. So if you're wondering why you're feeling so chaotic, this is why. We're constantly in a time shift right now. When I do talk about technology, I like to give credit to one-way technology, which includes print, TV, radio, YouTube, pre-recorded lessons. So one-way technology is the tech that you receive, but you're not necessarily giving back on the same format. Two-way technology includes technology such as just a telephone, walkie-talkies, email, interactive learning games, and of course, video conferencing like we're doing here. When I think about my own school division, we are looking at any one of these at any given time. We do have communities that have full video conferencing capabilities. We also have communities where we're looking at print and telephone as our largest, our most common denominator with our families and students. So when I think about distance education, I don't think online education, I think distance education and all the variabilities within that. Thinking about technology again, just the reminder that technology is our tool. We don't need to be experts in every piece of tech that's out there. There are so many options right now, it can be quite overwhelming. But really just finding one or two tools, tech tools that help you. And if your most common denominator is telephone and print packages, that's okay too. And then we build onwards from that. In my school division, we rely heavily on these activity packages that we often just send out and collect about once a week. We're dividing materials into daily packages. We send a reminder of us because we want to maintain that relationship, and something personal as well, a picture or an article that a student might have liked. And if we can connect even by telephone at the very least, if not, video conferencing or whatever other medium we have, to create opportunities for those peer communications, personal contributions to the conversation, and to create those shared experiences for that small group. So what I'd like to know from everybody is, what is your most common denominator in terms of technology? Do most of your students have video conferencing as their most common denominator? Or would it be telephone? Would it be activity packages? Would it be the radio? Everybody's in such a different situation that I'd really like to find out, what is your most common denominator? And as people are bringing in those responses, we'll continue on. Another aspect of maintaining that relationship is the early win. This is where we are connecting with our students. We're reinforcing the skills and abilities that our students already have. And we're making that transition from this big emergency teaching scenario into a planned distance education program. And that can be difficult to do, but you are here in the right spot and making progress with this today for sure. And why? Well, this is how our students are feeling. I think sometimes this is also how I'm feeling, where I just want to fall down on purpose just to take a break. And another one that really hits home, like our young folks across the world are feeling this. Maintaining those relationships is critical. It is that Maslow's before Bloom's. It's the reason why our students are still coming to us. All right, so Chris, you can check out the comments there. What is a most common denominator for a lot of our participants here?
Yeah, not surprisingly, we are seeing tons and tons of video conferencing tools. So whether it's Zoom or Microsoft Teams, Seesaw, that was across the board. That's the world we live in right now.
Good, that's good. And being aware though, it's not like that everywhere. So being aware that you might have individual families that don't have that access, or communities or places across the world that aren't there yet. So it's always good to have that in mind as well. And it's good to see that we have that broad spectrum of the most common denominator there. And the last aspect of relationship that I wanted to touch on is that real importance of celebration, where we celebrate and we have those opportunities to celebrate ourselves, our learners, the year, academic success. And really, we are the educators of this world pandemic. And when we think about it that way, it can be a little bit intimidating. So let's make sure we celebrate ourselves too. We are transforming. We're the ones helping our youth. And we're also trying to help ourselves, trying to help our own families and our own communities at the same time. It's a lot. So if anybody, or if you haven't heard this recently or at all, well done. We are doing this, we're making it through, and you're carving out time in your day, even to be here with me today. You're doing well, and I appreciate everything that's happening here. In my home, we decided to celebrate a little bit this spring. This is our new addition. This is Bond. And he's not named after James Bond. He's actually Hydrogen Bond, because my son is a little science nerd, just like I am. He is now almost a year old. In this picture, though, is the day we got him. There were some unexpected benefits to having this puppy, and that is that my two little ones like to be in the kennel. So this is my daughter, Ella, my son, Simon. And like I said, the unexpected benefits of having this puppy here. And also, you know, I really like to make sure that I celebrate and de-stress with my friend group. These are my best friends, and every Friday night we would go on to Messenger and make sure that we celebrated, that we de-stressed, that we talked about our successes, we talked honestly about our failures, and everything in between. So making sure that celebration is there is really, really important here. And again, our kids are feeling this too. So they're not just feeling all the stress of the world right now, they're also feeling all of the good things. So when we want to celebrate and when we make those efforts, they absolutely feel that as well. I really think that Lou, Johan, we should be making cards for ourselves today. We are the best, each and every one of us. All right, so folks, what has been an early win for you so far in 2021? Or what has been a celebration, or if you have a way of celebrating coming up? I'd love to hear that. And Chris, we'll just take a quick pause. If one or two come in, I'd love to hear it.
Absolutely.
And
So we have, oh, go ahead.
yeah, I was going to ask Lou, Johan as well, if you'd like to contribute too. What has been either an early win or a celebration that you have so far?
Yeah, so far what I'm seeing is having children there every day, virtual and in class. Let's see, when my kids refused to say goodbye, wanted to stay on the call longer.
Aw.
Quality time with family, which I totally agree with. So Pratima, I am with you there. Our students are widely present, engaged, and happy in learning, according to students and parents surveys.
Amazing, good. And what about yourself, Lou?
I think I've taken a lot more risks during this pandemic because we've had to pivot so much, right? And change how we normally do things. So I've been taking a lot of risks in how I um, work with my teachers, how I work with kids, and so forth.
Nice. Johan, what about yourself?
I think my kids enjoyed everyone created a fake sentence starter, and then different students picked someone else's, and they made some really incredible stories that made us all laugh.
Oh, that is awesome. And what a great idea. All right, thank you. So it's good to hear all of that. And it's important to remember that, right? Not only do ourselves and our students feel all of that stress, but they feel all the warmth and the love as well. And maintaining that relationship teacher to student is equally as important as connecting to content. So going back to this diagram as well, we have that student-teacher relationship, but we're also looking at student content and how can we engage our students so they have that personal connection to what we're doing. You were asked to bring 2 sheets of paper to this session. So if you can get those 2 sheets of paper now, what I'm asking you to do is create 2 identical paper airplanes. So you're not doing anything with them yet. As you create, I'm going to continue on and we're going to come back to the paper airplanes in a few minutes. So right now, all you are doing is creating 2 identical paper airplanes in whatever fashion you want to create them. All right, good luck with that. We'll come back to it in just a moment. When we think about strategies and approaches to teaching, we're looking at classroom versus distance. What is possible and what's not? And in the science classroom, this can be tricky because we think we're so limited from a distance, when in actuality, we can achieve most of what we would like to achieve. What we're looking at is also finding the most common elements for all students, and that is our experiences while we're at home and in our community. So looking at our entire community as that classroom, we're looking at, of course, our physical classroom, our school, our homes, our yards, our neighborhoods, even the culture around us is all about those common experiences for us and our students. And when we look at experiential learning, that's a way to bring together that common experience. This is one of my favorite definitions of experiential learning, and that's that learning through soul, where those inner and outer worlds converge. And you can find many definitions for experiential learning. I think this one's just my absolute favorite here. This is Kolbe's experiential learning cycle. And you can see it's cyclical. It goes from doing, reviewing, concluding, planning, trying out, and it continues on. And when we think about having that experience as the center of what we do, it really is this cycle. Here in Canada, I found this one that I really like as well. It's beautiful in its simplicity, and it's our First Nations way of knowing. So it's that know it, see it, feel it, do it. And again, that cyclical nature where this continues on. When I think about experiential teaching and learning, this comes to mind. So this is Simon, my little guy. You'll remember him from the photo in the dog kennel. And this spring, what we did is we came up with a way to do outreach across Manitoba and really across the world. And we created a series called Simon the Scientist. So Simon would explore multiple concepts in early and middle year science. We would go live on Facebook and really just have a good time and bring challenges to other students. And it was kids teaching kids, just a fantastic series. And one day we were getting ready for this. We were getting ready for Simon the Scientist when, well, you remember this little guy. Chris, do you remember his name? It is a science nerdy name.
Oh my gosh, don't put me on the spot. I can't remember it. Like Adam.
How about, there we go.
Hydrogen bond.
There we go. Yeah. You got it, hydrogen bond. So this is Bond. And we're getting ready for Simon the Scientist. And my daughter calls from the next room, Mom, Bond is pooping. And of course, it's puppy days. So I go in there and Bond was not pooping. In fact, Bond had worms. I have never dealt with this before in my life. It was absolutely disgusting. I was trying to help the dog get the worms out because they weren't all the way out yet. I was panicking. I was yelling at my son to go get the paper towel. He comes back with half of a sheet of paper towel. No, get the roll. And you know, get the dog outside, but I'm trying to help him. And all of this chaos was going on. I finally get the dog outside. I help him the way he needs to be helped. And I look over and there's my daughter still on her Teams meeting, and her whole class witnessed all of this chaos. And it was awful. So folks, I do have a picture to show you because we are all here for science. And if this is going to gross you out, now is the time to turn away. But if you want to see, this is happening. So again, you are being warned. This is a gross graphic picture of what happened. Here we go. This was absolutely disgusting. The worst of what I've seen. Chris, feel free to jump in with your reaction because this was awful.
I'm actually a bit stunned.
There's no words, right? This was, I think he was about 10 weeks old at this time. It was brutal. So what we did with that, folks, if you turned away, you can now turn back. We're not on the gross picture anymore. What we ended up doing with that is, you know, over the next couple of days, the kids had so many questions about worms and parasites. And, you know, I was still so grossed out because I had never dealt with this before. And we actually ended up turning it into a Simon the Scientist session. So I had a parasitologist friend come on as a guest speaker from the University of Manitoba. And Simon did a bunch of research. He drew some pictures of parasites and we just did it. We had a parasite-based Simon the Scientist. So I am not saying that this should be the center of your experiential learning. But I am saying that sometimes these learning opportunities come up. They're authentic, and that's sometimes just what they are. So let's forget that, you know, bit of disgusting grossness, and let's go to your 2 paper airplanes. So Lou and Johan, Chris, if you like, feel free to share your video now. I'd like to see you as well. You have 2 identical paper airplanes. And the first one, folks, you will launch for distance. So launch one paper airplane the best that you can and note about how far it's going to go. Johan, how did it do? Pretty good?
Not so good, about a meter.
About a meter? All right. Well, that's okay. That's okay.
Okay.
Lou, how about yours? Did you launch
I
one?
got to hear. I realized I don't know how to make a paper airplane.
Oh, well, that's all right. You have some good teachers here anyway.
That is
So
I looked it up.
Oh.
good for you. Right on. The second one, now you're not launching for distance anymore. The second one, what I'd like you to do is manipulate something on your plane, change a variable. And your goal is to try to make your plane do a trick. Okay, so that trick doesn't need to be predetermined. Maybe it'll veer to the left or to the right. Maybe it will swan dive up or nose dive down. Maybe it will barrel roll. We don't know. So change something, do a launch, and tell me what happens.
All right, my guy spiraled around instead of flying straight. It was like a topsy-turvy type of
Very
thing.
cool. And what variable did you change?
I folded the wings in a little bit even more to make it narrower. So
Excellent, nice. Chris, how about yours?
Yeah, mine actually went forward and straight down. So a 90-degree down, and I just added flaps on the tail. Little flaps, not all the way down. So who knows?
Very nice. Anyone in chat, tell us what your trick ended up being and what your variable was. Do we have anybody on there yet, Chris?
Sorry
Chris, you're
about that. I
on.
was on mute for a second. Yep. Hold on. Here we go. So hold on one sec. Sorry about that, folks. There we go. All right. So mine turned itself the second time, turned around the second time, turned up by turning up the tail wings, the edge of the wings folded up, better control. And that's what we have so far.
That is awesome. Fantastic. So what we just did right now was a very simple example of an experience that we all shared across the world with minimal materials. And that's really what we're looking for. We're looking to keep it simple to demonstrate scientific concepts, but really using that base of an experience to then launch the rest of our discussion. And yes, I use that word launch on purpose when it comes to paper airplanes. When we are thinking about experience and how we're approaching this, keeping in mind that we are natural pattern seekers. We have patterns all around us, even in the course of a day with, sunrise, midday, evening hours, sunset, or even with our seasons. Seeking patterns, it really calms the chaos of what we've been doing and what we're in right now. So if we can build those patterns, it will help calm that chaos for ourselves, but also for our students and families. Again, there's patterns all around us in nature, and especially in science. When I think about experiential learning, I see that as the base, the center or core of what we do. And then we build out from that, where we can take an experience such as flying a paper airplane, and we can connect literacy, numeracy, our scientific concepts, culture, health, art, and so on onto that. We are then also considering those social connections and making sure we have those peer-to-peer connections happening and framing it all in with reflection and assessment. And that then becomes our pattern of taking an experience and building outwards. Now, if we continue to repeat this, it becomes more of a long-term pattern in our teaching, where we have an experience, we connect it, social, frame it in with reflection and assessment, and we continue that. But what exactly are we starting with? What are those experiences? Well, in Frontier, in my school division, as I mentioned, I've been doing Simon the Scientist with my son, and I encourage you to check it out. So he is on Facebook under Simon Scientist, and He's also on YouTube. So we ended up winning a grant from Manitoba Possible. And we ended up getting a YouTube channel where every one of his sessions is translated into American Sign Language. So, you know, we fully believe in that inclusivity. So on YouTube, it's all ASL, Facebook, it's not, but you could go either place and find these sessions. Again, these are good for your students to watch. They're all in one little sessions, kids teaching kids, or you can use it for your own PD as well. There's such a variety. This is only a few, but there's such a variety of concepts that we've taken from early and middle years that are really useful, and they're just a lot of fun. Another document that I had created was one called the 5-minute field trip. So what I did was I took every cluster in kindergarten through grade 12 here in Manitoba and came up with a few ideas for easy, simple ways to get outside, either in the schoolyard under the guidance of a teacher, or I also revised it this year so that the ideas are useful for in and around the home area as well. Again, this is kindergarten through grade 12. Every cluster that we have, you will have a different curriculum, but the ideas are there. They're in the same regions of disciplines. And you can feel free to have a look at this document and use it as you wish. So Chris, you'll have to remind me, do we have participant emails of everyone who's in this session?
I don't, or we don't right here on this session, but I'm sure the team has them for sure.
Okay, so we'll find a way
And
to
they
get this to you, and I'll be sharing my email at the end anyway. So if you don't get them, feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to send you the full documents here. The other resource that I'd like to share with you is one that we developed this spring in response to all of our distance outreach. And these are STEM cards. So the STEM cards are all-in-one activities that you can print off and send home, or go over from a distance and do as a group. So they're science-based, but they also have Indigenous tech in there, and we worked with Parks Canada, who provided the BioLinks section as well. All materials are easy to get materials, and they're all scientific based. And again, I'd like to share our set of 5 with you. And we are currently just about finished developing an entire set from kindergarten through grade 12, which should be ready in the next 2 weeks, that I can also send to you once those are ready. Okay, so again, these are resources that I will be sharing with you that are easy to use and ready to go immediately. All right, so I would like to know in the chat, can you see yourself using any of these 3 resources? And if you have any comments or questions about them, now's the time. So Chris, anything coming up there just yet? I saw it flashing a little bit.
Just the appreciative, thank you so much for the material. Can't wait to get them. 5-minute field trip ideas for grade 5, how the world works. Yes, they look great.
Yep.
So there's very positive feedback.
Good, good. And if you have any questions, again, at the end, I'll be sharing my email. And
have been trying to do, oh, sorry. So sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say one more. Yes, definitely have been trying to do activities such as this too for inquiry. So great for our unit energy. We are still starting.
Perfect, good. And like I said, we just have 5 of the STEM cards that we did in the springtime, but we are on the home stretch of finishing that entire set from kindergarten through grade 12. And I'll be happy to share the entire set with you as soon as that's done as well. But immediately I can send you the 5-minute field trips and the STEM cards, and you can get on to Simon the Scientist. All right, so we're looking at that as our pattern, but then we also are considering what approaches are we taking? So what are the tools that we can use for teaching science in 2021? And a lot of us went through this in the springtime when we try to use our conventional classroom methods, and then we realize we go through that period of frustration when we realize that's unsuccessful. So most of us have already been through this shift where we've had to try to figure out what the difference is between face-to-face science teaching and distance science teaching. I was sitting at the table here one day, and my little guy, Simon, was happily drawing pictures, and I was doing some work at the table, and he came over to me and he handed me this picture. And I looked at it and I was a little bit in shock. And he was so proud of himself, but this was Simon's drawing of me. And I mean, really, look at those teeth, look at those eyebrows and that hair. And I will admit that sometimes my hair looks like that, but really this was quite awful. And he must have seen my face or my reaction. I didn't say anything, but he went back and he drew a new picture, and this was his new picture, but this was not the original intent. And what I want to do is, not look like this when it comes to online teaching. And I do want to feel much more like this. This is what I'm aiming for. I did find an amazing resource from the Perimeter Institute for Theoretical Physics. This just came out this past fall. It's an amazing document. And what they have are 47 tools for teaching science, kindergarten through grade 12. They're universally applicable. And as I went through them, I really dissected them in depth. I would safely say that 30 of these 47 could work well just with activity packages and telephone. And then, of course, adding on additional 1- and 2-way tech to that. What I like about the activities in here is that they differentiate between activating, establishing, deepening, reflecting. And again, it's that cyclical nature. And the Perimeter Institute also acknowledges that cyclical nature of these activities. And as the 47 activities are listed, they identify which activities are suitable most for activating, establishing, and so on. So it's an amazing guide. I don't promote stuff too often. I have a very strict filter with what I promote. And this is one that I found that is absolutely phenomenal. There's also tools in here that are focused on that base experience. And two of the tools that I would like to highlight are, of course, two that we've been doing here today. One is the interactive lecture, where we have these short discussions followed by this interactive activity that requires us to do something with content. It identifies the teacher actions, the strengths, and also the alerts of this tool. And this is in this document. And another one that we've discussed is the tool of interdisciplinary projects, where you're using science as your base, but building outward. So you can use that experience, scientific-based experience, and then build your cross-curricular connections, your peer relationship, your assessment and reflection onto that. So all of that is in this document, and I will also be sending you the PDF for this, and I really do recommend that you take some time with this. It's a phenomenal document, 47 tools and ideas of teaching, and the vast majority of them are very well suited for distance education scenarios. And my goal with that, again, is just to look less like this and much more like this. So what does all of this mean for you? Well, my top advice here is really just to focus, number one, on your peer, student, and family relationship. And don't forget, you're not left out of that relationship as well. It's taking care of ourselves. To use experiential learning as your base. And then, of course, building on that to create those learning patterns, which will help calm the chaos. And finding a way where you can cultivate an early win for this week or for yourself today, or some way that you can come up with an early. Also like to extend a huge thank you for taking your time and being here with me today.